Hello, and welcome to the Quick Clicks video training series, Essential Strategies in 15 Minutes or Less, created by California Deafblind Services. This training is about tactile object cues.
Tactile object cues, a bridge to communication for learners who are deaf-blind. Welcome. I'm Julie Meyer, the project coordinator of California Deafblind Services. In this video, you're going to learn about the use of tactile object cues. The use of carefully selected and meaningful objects is a respectful and effective mode of communication for children and youth with emergent language skills. Learners who are deaf-blind use a variety of communication systems for different needs and in different settings. Using objects for both receptive and expressive communication is a mode that's easily understood by most learners, as well as their communication partners in both new and familiar settings. Sighted and hearing individuals, we often take for granted how much information we consistently pick up, incidentally, about our environment, and then use that information to participate with other people in the environments and in the activities that are occurring there. For children and youth who are deaf-blind, the environment, the activities, the people around them can be confusing and seem scary, and that's due to their limited access to visual and auditory information. A learner who's deaf-blind may appear uncertain or anxious and may isolate themselves from others. Communication partners need to find a way to make a trusted connection in order to expand communication with that child. For many of these children and youth, communication in a tactile mode and using objects is key as they learn to listen and see with their hands. What are tactile object cues? I'd like to share a little bit about the use of tactile object cues. The purpose for using object cues is to give the learner an alternate mode to communicate, a different way for them to understand what is about to happen, where they will be, and who they'll be with. Tactile object cues are real physical items that are used to represent an activity, perhaps a place, and perhaps even a person or a concept. The objects let the learner know where they're going, what's going to happen when they get there, who they're with. Object cues also provide a means for the learner to develop more expressive communication skills. Now, these objects develop meaning through consistent use and association. For instance, I remember meeting a parent who would place a set of keys on the tray of her child's wheelchair when they were going to travel somewhere in the car. The keys on the wheelchair meant I'm going somewhere in the car. Another student I served many years ago loved to dig in the tan bark at recess. And so a bucket and a toy shovel indicated it was time for recess, and then also could be used to offer a choice of activities at recess. Why are they important? For learners who are deaf-blind, tactile object cues provide a reliable way to understand routines, make choices, and express themselves. Establishing this mode of communication can reduce anxiety and foster agency and independence. For instance, maybe for circle time, you use a small carpet square or soft fabric that the child touches and feels like the carpeting where they're going to meet. So the child feels this each time the group is gathering, and it's the unique texture is signaling that that activity is about to begin. Maybe for reading time, you present a board book, a chunky board book, and maybe it has a raised braille label on the corner. All these things are acting as cues, letting the learner know, okay, we're about to have quiet reading time, or I'm about to sit in a quiet area with my friend or my teacher and read a book. In this way, object cues are also laying the foundation for literacy. They're helping the learner start to connect concrete experiences to a symbolic representation. So for instance, associating that familiar object with a corresponding story in a braille or book bridges meaning between the tactile input and the written language. And these cues then start to build anticipation for the learner. They support their memory, and they're encouraging them to actively engage. Now, consistent use of familiar object cues is what allows a learner to start recognizing what's about to happen in the moment, what may be happening next, so anticipation, and then what happened in the past. So you can start to reference something that happened in the past. Over time, starting to pair objects and language that way is going to foster concept development and also promote early literacy awareness. This is very important. Examples of tactile object cues. Now, you may be wondering, how do I select the right object cue, or where can I purchase them? So let's dig into that a little further. An object cue is chosen for its connection to the activity, the place, the person, or the concept. The types of object cues can include the whole object used in an activity, such as a paintbrush for an art activity, pieces of the real object, such as the chain from the swing that the child might use at recess that I showed earlier, textures such as a piece of carpet that feels like the rug the child sits on at circle time. The learner's understanding of concepts will help you determine whether you're going to use the actual item or some part of the item that's used in the activity, or something that perhaps feels similar. Now, it's very important that the object is consistently presented and also personally meaningful to the learner. And if possible, if you can allow the learner to help choose the object, that could make it even more powerful. Families, teachers, interveners, other therapists are going to need to work together to choose the objects that have the most meaning for that learner. The key is consistency and relevance to the learner's experience. So the object must be salient. That means it holds meaning for the child. So you may think that a miniature school bus or a miniature backpack is a good choice for the message, "It's time to go to school or go home." However, these objects may be too abstract and hold little meaning for the child. Initially, a better option might be to use something like the strap that feels like the child's car seat, or the belt that they wear when they are riding on the school bus, or maybe an item that the child always brings to school. Perhaps they always bring a favorite book. That would be something that would be much more salient. You can purchase prepared made tactile objects from organizations like the American Printing House for the Blind, but I suggest using caution in buying an entire set. The object cues that are pre-made may not be individualized enough for your child or student, and they might not be easily understood. Many of these objects are also affixed to stiff white cardstock, which can make it easier to use in a calendar system, but the learner can't explore the entire object when it's affixed to a card. So moving to partial objects affixed to a card might be part of the evolution of the learner's communication system, but it could be limiting in the beginning, especially for learners with additional disabilities. How to use tactile object cues. I'd like to offer some suggestions for how to use object cues within daily routines. Using a hand-under-hand approach, you'll introduce the object before the activity begins. So make sure that you put aside plenty of time that's going to allow the learner to explore the object cue. So for instance, to teach the concept of mealtime or snack time, you might present the spoon that the child uses as the object cue. And you'll select the spoon that the child uses. It's got the same look and feel. At each mealtime and snack time across the day, then, the learner is given that spoon in a very consistent way. So whether you're exploring it hand under hand together, or you're placing it in the learner's hand so that they can hold it, or placing it on their tray so they can feel it, that's the signal that this routine is starting. And over time, the learner is going to begin to associate the spoon's shape, the feel of it, even how it feels when they're touching their lips or they're being fed. And that's going to start to build anticipation and understanding of what comes next. And if the learner has some residual hearing, you can also build vocabulary by pairing it with spoken language and saying, "Here's your spoon, it's time for lunch," or "It's time for snack." If they have some residual vision, you can pair it with a simple sign. You could present the spoon to the child and sign "spoon" and "lunch" or "eat." It will be important to also document the selected object cues And you can do this by creating a communication dictionary. That clearly describes the object cue and any accompanying spoken language or sign language or maybe picture that's used for each activity, place, and person. And then you'll want to make sure that that dictionary is shared with the entire team and all the different family members and people that come in contact with the student. You also need to ensure that this information and those selected objects move with the individual when they transition to a new class or placement. Empowering communication. Earlier, I explained that initially the object lets the learner know where they're going and what will happen when they get there. But once the learner starts to recognize the object cue, they can be used in a calendar system or for the learner to select a choice and even to express a preference or a comment or make a request. And over time, the child will begin to associate the item with what comes next. So it can be very helpful to keep the object nearby during the activity. So if an opportunity arises to reference the object, it provides another opportunity to build association with the activity, the place, the person, or the concept. So for example, during a reading activity, the child may reach out to touch the board book, which is the object cue for reading. You can acknowledge their comment by communicating in spoken or sign language. Yes, that's your book. This is story time and we're reading and it's fun to read with you. I like this. So using the object cues to build further communication, conversation, and connection. I hope you've enjoyed learning about tactile object cues. These object cues are a way of building a language of connection between a learner and their parent or their caregiver or teacher or intervener. When object cues are selected for meaning and salience and used consistently, they support communication and concept development and provide opportunities for literacy skill development as well. If you're interested in learning more about tactile communication strategies, you can visit the California Deafblind Services website, and there you'll find fact sheets and articles by topic under communication. You can also contact any CDBS staff member for consultation and resource recommendations. Thanks for joining us.